In the summer of 2012, a United States Navy aircraft carrier group crossed the Pacific Ocean. The ships burned no petroleum. The jets flew on no petroleum. An FA-18 Super Hornet broke the sound barrier over the Hawaiian Islands on a fuel pressed from the seeds of a plant that farmers in Bronze Age Europe had grown to light their lamps. The Navy called it the Great Green Fleet. The Secretary of the Navy said it would change American energy forever. 2 years later, oil prices dropped. The program was defunded, and the plant was forgotten again. Most Americans alive today have never even heard its name. And the reason the program died was not only that petroleum got cheap. Someone made sure it could not survive when it did. Welcome to Nature's Lost Vault. The archive opens not in a laboratory, but in a field outside the village of Auvergne, Switzerland. The year is 2200 BC. Archaeologists excavating a Neolithic settlement in the late 20th century find something unexpected in a sealed clay vessel. Seeds. Tiny, pale, oil-rich seeds stored deliberately. Apart from everything else in the same layer of flax, wheat, and millet. In later Iron Age sites across northern Greece, Romania, and the steppes of Ukraine, the same pattern repeats. Camelina seeds stored separately, never mixed with grain. The people who grew it understood it was different from food crops. They pressed it into oil. They burned that oil in stone lamps to push back the dark. For 4,000 years, camelina was Europe's lamp oil. Before petroleum, before natural gas, before electricity, northern European civilization ran on this plant. Every lamp in every farmhouse from Finland to Romania burned it. The Latin name, Camelina sativa, meant the cultivated low-growing one. But farmers had a second name for it that tells the whole story. They called it gold of pleasure. A small plant, 3 feet tall, pale yellow flowers, and a 90-day growing season so short it could be harvested before midsummer and the land planted again. It needed no irrigation. It needed no fertilizer. It grew on soil too thin and cold for wheat. And its seeds contained up to 42% oil by weight. A concentration so high that a single acre could press out enough fuel to light an entire village through winter. Then petroleum arrived. Gold of pleasure simply stopped being necessary. By the 1940s, European production had steeply declined. After World War II, agricultural subsidy programs in Germany, France, and Britain were specifically designed to consolidate farmland around a small number of standardized commodity crops. Canola and rapeseed were easier to hydrogenate for industrial use. They received government support prices. Camelina received nothing. By 1960, it had essentially vanished from commercial agriculture across Western Europe. Not because it failed, because the quiet arithmetic of government support checks arriving for crops that were not camelina made everything else more profitable. There was no dramatic congressional hearing, no single named order, just a subsidy structure that buried it. But something happened in 2003 that changed the calculation. A small agricultural company in Bozeman, Montana, named Sustainable Oils, started running field trials on camelina in the northern Great Plains. The results were striking. Camelina grew on Montana's high, dry plains on a single pass of spring rain. No irrigation, no pest control required. Flea beetles that devastated canola crops did not touch it. It matured in less than 100 days. Farmers could slot it into their wheat rotation without changing a single piece of equipment. And its oil, when chemically analyzed, caught the attention of engineers. Not chefs. Engineers. The fatty acid profile was exceptionally close in energy density to petroleum jet fuel. Not similar. Close. In October 2009, the Navy's F414 engine, The exact turbofan that powers the Super Hornet was tested at Naval Air Station Patuxent River, running on a 50-50 blend of camelina biofuel and conventional JP5. The engine performed without a single modification. No degradation of power, no change in handling, no difference the pilots could detect. On Earth Day 2010, a Super Hornet dubbed the Green Hornet flew supersonic over the Chesapeake Bay on camelina fuel. It was the first supersonic flight in history on a plant-derived biofuel. Secretary of the Navy, Ray Mabus, watched it land. He had announced the year before that by 2020, half of all Navy and Marine Corps energy would come from non-fossil sources. A carrier strike group, the most powerful floating weapons platform in human history, running on American-grown crops. In 2012, IT happened. The USS Nimitz carrier strike group deployed to the Pacific Rim exercise off Hawaii. Surface ships ran on a 50-50 biofuel blend. 6 FA-18 aircraft from the Blue Angels demonstrated formation flying on camelina. The Blue Angels commanding officer flew that aircraft 400 times a year. He said he felt no difference. A Michigan Technical University analysis confirmed camelina jet fuel produced 84% lower carbon emissions than petroleum across its full life cycle. The concept was proven. Every aircraft type in the Navy's inventory had flown on it. Every class of surface ship had been tested. The fuel was approved. Montana farmers were expanding camelina acreage under military contracts. The infrastructure was being built. Then, in 2014, global oil prices collapsed. A barrel of crude fell from $115 to below $50 in less than 6 months. The economics of the Navy's program instantly inverted. Conventional fuel was suddenly half the price. Now, here is the part that did not make the news. Between 2005 and 2012, the American Petroleum Institute lobbied against every federal mandate that would have required biofuel blending in aviation fuel or military fuel. They killed proposed alternative fuel investment bills in committee. They funded studies casting doubt on biofuel scalability. When the oil price collapse came in 2014, the infrastructure that would have allowed camelina production to survive a low oil environment did not exist. It had been prevented from existing. The API did not need to do much in 2014. It had already done the work a decade earlier. The biofuel contracts were not renewed. Sustainable Oils, having spent a decade breeding camelina strains optimized for aviation fuel, could not sustain operations without military contracts. The Great Green Fleet became a historical footnote. A program built over 10 years and tens of millions in DARPA research funding was abandoned in 18 months. An entire fuel infrastructure built by American farmers was erased in the time it takes to plant 2 crops. Here is what was lost in those 18 months. Camelina grows on fallow land that would otherwise produce nothing. It does not compete with food crops. A wheat farmer plants it in the off-season rotation without changing equipment. Standard combines harvest it without modification. A cold press extracts 75% of the seed oil on a home scale for roughly $300 in equipment. The resulting fuel meets both American and European biodiesel standards. The meal left after pressing is FDA-approved livestock feed, dense with omega-3 fatty acids and protein. 1 acre of camelina produces 500 to 900 pounds of seed. That yields roughly 20 to 35 gallons of oil. A diesel generator running 8 hours a day burns approximately 1 gallon per hour. 30 gallons of camelina biodiesel runs a backup generator for 4 days. That is not total energy independence, but it is a buffer, a reserve, something no petroleum company can blockade, tax, or price you out of. And camelina seeds are open-pollinated. Save seed from your harvest, plant it next season. The cost drops to near zero after the first year. The Pentagon spent 10 years proving this works. Then oil prices fell, and the knowledge was filed away in military logistics reports most Americans will never read. But the knowledge was never actually lost. In 2017, a Washington University researcher named Jordan Brock traveled to the Kremenets region of Ukraine to study camelina's origins. What he found stopped him. Rural farmers were still growing it by hand, pressing it for oil in equipment their grandparents had used. Living on land too poor for canola, too cold for corn, they had never stopped. They had simply never been told to start a different crop. They do not know about the Green Hornet. They do not know about the blue angels flying on their plant over the Pacific. They just know that the small, yellow, flowering crop that takes 90 days from seed to harvest has kept them fed and lit for as long as anyone can remember. It continued, quietly, the way things continue when no subsidy program ever arrives to replace them. Camelina seed is available today from small-scale suppliers in Montana and Canada. Legal in all 50 states, no permit required. It germinates in soil as cold as 34 degrees Fahrenheit, earlier than any other spring crop you already grow. A cold press for home-scale extraction costs $200 to $400. The resulting oil burns in any diesel engine, any oil lamp, any biodiesel generator, without modification. The US Navy proved it works at supersonic speed. You can prove it works on a backup generator. The 4,000-year-old lamp oil that once almost replaced petroleum is still out there, in fields in Montana, in seed banks in Europe, in plots in Ukraine that nobody ever told to stop growing it. It never needed permission to exist. The only thing it ever needed was for someone to press its seeds. If this vault changed how you see your own independence, do not let this knowledge disappear again. Subscribe to Nature's Lost Vault and hit the bell. Every like and every share bypasses the algorithm to preserve what they tried to forget. The next vault opens soon.